At midnight on April 22, 1951, the ridgelines above the Kapyong Valley filled with a sound every UN soldier in Korea had learned to dread, the tinny shriek of Chinese military bugles, answered by cymbals, answered by drums. It was not music. It was a signal. Somewhere out in the Korean dark, roughly 30,000 soldiers of the Chinese People's Volunteer Army were moving. And the Kapyong Valley, a dirt road corridor 30 miles north of Seoul, lay almost completely open ahead of them. Standing between that road and catastrophe were two battalions that had not expected to be the last line of anything. The 3rd Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment, 3 RAR, held Hill 677, a ridgeline so steep and broken that its own men called it a goat track. 2 miles south, the 2nd Battalion of Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry dug into Hill 532. Wool greatcoats, Owen submachine guns, sea rations going cold in the April chill. Together, fewer than 1,500 men. Against them, an entire Chinese corps that had just torn a 12-mile gap in the UN line. The Chinese 118th Division had punched through the South Korean 6th Division earlier that evening. Retreating soldiers flooded back through the valley in the dark, some of them running straight through the Australian positions on Hill 677. Sergeant Maury Pears watched the river of frightened men stream past his foxhole and quietly ordered his section to fix bayonets. He did not say anything else. He didn't need to. The attack came just past midnight. Human wave assaults, that's what the dispatches called them, a bloodlessly bureaucratic phrase for what it actually was, company after company of Chinese infantry climbing the hill under direct fire, some in canvas sneakers, some armed with little more than grenades and the man running beside them. The Australians fought with Owen guns and Bren guns, and when those ran hot, with entrenching tools. By dawn, D Company had held its ground. The Chinese 118th Division had lost roughly 1,000 men on that one slope. The Canadians had it differently. By April 24, the two PPCLI were surrounded. Chinese infantry had infiltrated between them and every other UN unit in the valley. B Company Commander Major C.V. Lilly called battalion headquarters and said, with the particular flatness of a man who had weighed his options, that he required artillery fired directly onto his own position. The New Zealand 16th Field Regiment obliged. Shells landed inside the Canadian perimeter. When the smoke cleared and the assault broke, B Company counted its casualties and found it had survived what, by any reasonable calculation, should have been the end. For 3 nights the battle ground on. Supply runs were impossible by road, the valley floor was cut, so ammunition came in by airdrop, small parachute bundles tumbling onto hillsides in the dark, some of them never found. Men carried crates up slopes under fire by hand. And then, on the morning of April 25, it stopped. The Chinese 5th Phase offensive had spent itself. The road to Seoul, 30 miles south, remained closed. Kapyong had held. President Truman awarded both battalions the United States Presidential Unit Citation, the first time in history that complete non-American units received the honor. The Australians and Canadians accepted it with the careful understatement of men who had been somewhere the citation writers had not. Back in the Kapyong Valley, the spring grass was already growing over the shell craters on Hill 677. The goat track held. Seoul never knew how close it came. Strip away the tactical detail and here's what you're left with, a dirt road, 2 hills, and 1,500 men who were told nothing except that the road had to hold. No reinforcements were coming. The line behind them had already broken. They called artillery onto their own positions and kept fighting anyway. The road stayed closed. Seoul survived. And somewhere in the paperwork of a forgotten war, 2 citations were filed and the valley went quiet again. What strikes us is the phrase, the forgotten war, not applied to Kapyong specifically, but to Korea entire. We've heard it so many times it stopped sounding strange. 36,000 American dead. A peninsula that pivoted on a dirt road. And the cultural verdict is, forgotten. We don't think that's accidental. Forgetting is a choice made by omission, one generation at a time. So here's what we keep coming back to: what exactly did we agree to remember?